and that's what often gets translated as you dare. So I'm going to talk about that in just 1 minute. Beforehand, I wanted to mention I normally don't wear hoodies, but this is actually a hoodie from my online store that has different designs related to Chinese fantasy novels. This is a Xianxia one, so for those of you who are into cultivation novels, this one has a little cool Xianxia graphic, and then it has a definition of the term as well as a pronunciation guide. The pronunciation is a very, very basic for people who have no ability to pronounce Chinese characters, because obviously the XIA and XIA is not necessarily very easy to pronounce for people who are not familiar with Chinese. So anyway, check out the link in the description if you're interested in having this kind of stuff. This is, I didn't really know what the color was before I got it. I ordered it from the back end on the website, so I probably wouldn't have gone with this color. I haven't washed it yet, so I'm not sure about the size, but it is very comfortable. So. Hey everybody, Deathblade here with another Chinese fantasy novel FAQ. Today I'm going to be talking about something that was voted on by the patrons over at Patreon who support me and this channel. The topic is something that comes up in the Chinese fantasy novels all the time, and that's what often gets translated as you dare, which in Chinese is basically exactly what it sounds like in English. It's ni, which is the word for you, and gan, which is the word for dare, which is why it gets translated as you dare all the time. However, I have to be perfectly honest with you. I know that this you dare has become a trope of the genre. I see people use it in comments all the time, whether that's on Wuxia World, here on YouTube sometimes. Unfortunately, I'm really not a fan of it because you dare is not something that people say in English. It's just not. I was thinking about it and wondering, is that just my perception? So I did a little bit of Googling, and I couldn't really find any instance of it used in literature or on websites as a standalone phrase, you dare, because yeah, it's not what people in English say. So how do I handle it? Well, first let's talk about what the term means. I'm going to pull up my phone here really quickly, but just do a little screenshot. As you can see, if you pull up this term, it isn't even in my dictionary app, and I have something like 23, 25, 28 dictionaries in there, a ton of Chinese dictionaries. It just doesn't come up as a standalone phrase. Despite that, it is really, really common. And it literally does basically mean what it sounds like in English. It's not a very strong phrase. I heard kids at school use it when I used to teach. So I'm talking, 5-year-old kids would say this to each other. And it can be used in a more serious way. Obviously in the novels, it's usually being used in tense situations, fight scenes, dramatic altercations, in which the people might resort to violence shortly thereafter. So in those contexts, I think it's kind of supposed to be taken seriously. And usually it's kind of when you're either daring somebody to do something or expressing your disbelief that they will do something, or maybe it could be as a reaction to them doing something that you find unexpected or intolerable. The way that I usually handle it is something along the lines of how dare you. That's when it's a reaction, or when somebody is clearly about to do something. I think that's really what the most common way we would say it in English. The only thing about how dare you is that it's definitely not common. I can't envision a 5-year-old saying it, whereas in Chinese, I definitely heard kids that were as young as 5 or 6 saying it. I don't really think kids on the playground would say how dare you in English. I have yet to think of something that perfectly correlates, something that kids would say and adults would say in that kind of situation. I don't claim to be a genius of language or translation. So if anybody out there has a really good suggestion for another way to handle this kind of scenario, please do, leave a comment. But that said, I think the how dare you or do you dare or if you dare oftentimes suffices. Sometimes I'll sort of like mix and match different lines of dialogue and combine that with another line of dialogue to say something along the lines of, do you dare to do something? Sometimes I actually think that I dare you is really a good translation as well, especially if it's talking about an upcoming action. So if somebody is about to do something and the other character says, I dare you to do that. I think in English that's, actually now that I think about it, I can envision young kids saying that, and that's, I think, also the feeling that comes with this expression. It's somebody saying that they don't think you're gonna do it, but maybe you will do it, so that's why they're like, I dare you to. I think sometimes carries across the proper sensation. So this is kind of a short video because there's not really much analysis to go into it. I'm curious about your thoughts. If you've read a lot of the novels, have you seen this? Have you seen translators handle it in another way besides you dare that kind of jumps out as obviously being that same thing. I'm definitely curious about it. If you like this kind of content, please do like and subscribe. I'm getting closer and closer and closer to 9,000 subscribers, and then after that is 10,000. So I'm really hoping to continue slowly growing to reach that level. Thank you for all of you who do support. Again, you can go to Patreon to vote on content. I actually have a really big video that I've already shot that I'm planning to release, but it turned out being way too long. After I got done recording, it was at like 45 minutes, so I really need to cut that down. It's a surprise topic. Nobody on Patreon knows about it. Nobody really knows about it. So stay tuned for that. But if you are interested in voting on some of the other topics that I record videos about, please do head to Patreon and support. I really appreciate it. And that's it for this video. God's a lot.